Good morning, everyone. So all of you are only 39. Today we will be discussing CRVO, so central retinal vein occlusion, which is also one of the cause for the sudden painless loss of vision. So CRVO is almost the epidemiology, the male and female ratio is almost equal, and it is more common above the age of 65 years. Prevalence in population-based study is 0.1 to 0.4%, and it is usually unilateral disease, but may develop retinal vein occlusion in the fellow eye in 1% of the patient within the 1 year, and estimated 7% of the patient within the 5 years. So it is a unilateral one eye disease. So whenever there is a presentation with a gradual at this age, 60 plus age, with a sudden painless loss of vision, then you have to think branch retinal vein occlusion, or it is a gradual, that you can think central retinal vein occlusion. So what are the associated risk factors? So there are various various risk factors for the CRVO. So systemic vascular disease like diabetes, mellitus, hypertension, carotid insufficiency, ocular disease like primary open angle glaucoma. So primary open angle glaucoma and CRVO has the association with each other. So whenever there is a case of the CRVO, then we should rule out glaucoma also, whether that can be a glaucoma. So what is the reason for this association is not known, but there is an association. Ischemic optic neuropathy, pseudotumor cerebri, tilted optic disc, optic nerve with drusen. So these are the different causes for ocular risk factors for the CRVO. Hematological alterations is hyperviscosity syndrome, that is polycythemia vera, lymphoma, leukemia, sickle cell disease, anemia, elevated plasma homocysteine, factor 12 deficiency, and antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, protein C and S deficiency. So when you don't find any cause for the ocular cause for the CRVO, then we do the systemic evaluations to find out these other causes there can be for the CRVO, or some association can be there. Inflammatory or autoimmune vasculitis like SLE, medications like oral contraceptive, diuretics, and hepatitis B vaccines recently which is given, and infectious vasculitis like HIV, syphilis, herpes zoster, and sarcoidosis, and other after the retrobulbar block or dehydration of pregnancy. So these all histories should be taken in each and every step to rule out, to find out the cause for the CRVO. This is very important Viva question for you. What are the cause or what are the risk factors or associations for the CRVO? Because you will get the what are the causes of the sudden painless loss of vision to each and every of you, which you will be sitting in table in either of this table, then you will get these questions. So clinical features is hemorrhage. So you can see a lot of hemorrhage like this. These can be the dot type of hemorrhage, or it can be the blot type of hemorrhage in all the 4 quadrants. So it is an imaginary line which is passed through the papillomacular of the papillomacular bundle, crossing the optic disc, and a perpendicular line through it over it at the pupil. So it's divided into 4 quadrants, and you will see the hemorrhagic lesions throughout this 4 quadrants from the optic nerve bed. Radiate from the optic nerve beds are variable in quantity and may result in classic dot and thunder appearance. So various book has given the various descriptions regarding this hemorrhage. Ciliary retinal artery occlusion can occur in associations with the CRVO. So if there is ciliary artery occlusion also, then you will see whole of the center of the macula is involved. But in 20% of the cases, the serioretinal artery is present in people, and if this artery is not involved, then you will see the macula is not involved. Together, these occlusions have been hypothesized to constitute a distinct clinical entity rising from the sudden increase capillary pressure due to the CRVO and inducing relative occlusion of cilioretinal artery whose perfusion pressure is lower than that of central retinal artery. So you will see like this type. Central retinal vein occlusions, at the time of presentations, the visual acuity is variable, but is important prognostic indicator for the final visual outcome. So of this initial visual acuity is 20/40 or better, then the majority maintains a visual acuity, will maintains a good visual acuity at the end of the disease also. And intermediate is 20/50 to 20/100 is variable outcome. So it can leads to the, it can help the disease and leads to 20/50, or it can progress to the various sequelae and lead to 20/200. So the outcome is variable. And 4 is visual acuity of 20/100 or less than 20% chance of improvement is there. So this the initial visual acuity will indicate the final visual acuity, and you can explain the prognosis to the patient in that manner also if the patient asks you what will be the outcome of the disease. In in central vein occlusion syndrome, so it is worse visual acuity correlated with the development of the neovascular in the neovascular at the disc or neovascularization elsewhere. So neovascularization elsewhere may be present without the NVI in 12% of the cases. Perfusion status, classified perfusion status of the central retinal vein occlusion, perfused or non-perfused, or indeterminate based on the fluorescent angiographic character. So we do the fundus fluorescent angiography, and depending on that, the disease is classified into perfused CRVO and non-perfused CRVO, or non-ischemic CRVO and ischemic CRVO. So non-ischemic CRVO is demonstrated less than 10 disc area of retinal capillary non-perfusion on fluorescent angiography, and these eyes typically have less intraretinal hemorrhage and better initial visual acuity. So what are the features of this non-ischemic type of the CRVO? Non-ischemic CRVO is a most common type, which is accounting for about 75%. So 75% of the disease is in the milder form. You can understand that 75% of the disease is milder form and 25% is the severe one. So non-ischemic, and which the pupil is normally round, regular and reacting, and in some patient it can be a mild type of the relative apparent pupillary defect. So presentation is with sudden unilateral blur vision. So in all these cases, there will be the sudden unilateral blur vision. It can be impending, incipient, partial, immitent, incomplete, or threatened type of the CRVO. Fundoscopy, you will see the torches and dilatation of all the branches of central retinal vein. So there will be torches and dilatations of the vein. There will be the dot hemorrhage and even a flame-shaped hemorrhage, which is present in all the 4 quadrants. And there can be a numerous hemorrhage at the periphery of the retina also. And there can be the optic disc also. And some cotton wool patches, particularly in hypertensive patient. So transient retinal vein wall seeding can also be present. So the vessel walls, you can be seeding, that is a whitish type of the thing can be seen at the vessel wall, that is the seeding of the vessel wall. So these are the fundus finding. So you can see the toxicity of the vessels over here. but the toxicity is not so much severe as that of occurs in a ischemic type of the CRBO. This is a cotton wool spot. You can see the dot hemorrhage and you can see the blot hemorrhage also. And somewhat you will see the Dix edema, but still it is not the full Dix edema, because you can demarcate the Dix margin over here. If there is a severe Dix edema, then you cannot differentiate the COP and Dix, and there will the margin will be not delineated, and even the macular edema is present over here. So the acute sign resolves over 6 to 12 months with the Dix collaterals and pigment-free changes at the macula at the residual finding. So when does the disease will improve or heal? So you have to explain to the patient the sequelae is it takes about 6 to 12 months. And it is clearly non-ischemic occlusion. Initial follow-up should be takes place after 3 months. So if you are sure it's not the ischemic type, you have done the fluorescent angiography, fundus fluorescent angiography, then you advise the patient for the follow-up after 3 months. Conversion to ischemic CRVO occurs in 15% of the cases within the 4 months and 34% within the 3 months. So it is very necessary in every follow-up of the patient, you should dilate both the eyes and to see is there any sign of the ischemic changes like the neovascularization and secondary glaucoma, because this is very important. All the non-ischemic type of the CRBO, in 15% of the cases, they change into the ischemic type in the 4 months. So the regular follow-up is also very necessary. And 34% will change into the ischemic type within the 3 years. So the patient should be instructed to make a contact in the vision deteriorations, as they may indicate the development of the significant ischemia. So we advise, we counsel the patient and the patient party themselves to always look over the vision by closing each eye, so that they can, if they develop the deteriorations of the visual acuity, then they come to us, to the ophthalmologist very soon. In cases that do not subsequently become ischemic, the prognosis is reasonably good, with the result of the visions or normal visual outcome that is near normal in about 50% of the cases. In case of the ischemic type, non-perfused CRVO demonstrates 10 or more Dix area of retinal capillary non-perfusion on fundus fluorescent angiography, and greater degree of the retinal intraretinal hemorrhage, macular and Dix edema, and worse visual acuity at the onset. So whatever I have told in the non-ischemic type, that is more severe form is the ischemic type. So you will have the fundus fluorescent angiography, the demonstration features will be more than 10 Dix diopter, and all the hemorrhage and edema will be more. And if these are present, then the visual acuity will be less. Indeterminate is when there is a sufficient intraretinal hemorrhage to prevent angiographic determinations of perfusion status will be there. So ischemic CRVO is characterized by rapid onset venous obstruction resulting in decreased retinal perfusion, capillary closure, and retinal hypoxia. So patients with the severe central retinal vein occlusion typically have severe visual loss, usually less than 20 to 100, marked relative apparent pupillary defect, severe toxicity and engorgement of all branches of central retinal vein, extensive deep blot and flame-shaped hemorrhage involving the peripheral retina and posterior pole, and severe Dix edema and hyperemia. So this may lead to the profound vascular leakage, rubeosis iridis, and raised intraocular pressure. So when there is a new vessels at the iris, it is called the rubeosis iridis. So you will see the all exudates more in the retina due to the vascular leakage. You can see more hemorrhages, and there can be a secondary glaucoma. The prognosis is extremely poor due to the macular ischemia, and the rubeosis iridis develop in about 50% of the eyes, and usually between 2 and 4 months, that is the 90 days glaucoma, which is also called the 90 days glaucoma, and there is a high risk of neovascular glaucoma. So what is 90 days glaucoma? If you are asked, do you know what is 90 days glaucoma? Then it is following the CRVO in ischemic type. If it's developed within 2 to 4 months, the secondary glaucoma, that is called the 90 days glaucoma. So retinal neovascularizations occurs in about 5% of the eyes, and where possible, patient with ischemic CRVO should be seen monthly for 6 months. So every month you should ask for the follow-up to detect the onset of the anterior segment neovascularization, and subsequently reviews should usually be done up to 2 years to detect the significant ischemia and macular edema. So you see the pictures over here. So this is a more tortuous vessels are there, more hemorrhages are there, and there is a disc edema and a macular edema. Other examination features that may help in determining the perfusion status in an acute phase of CRVO: baseline visual acuity, RAPD, electroretinogram, and the Goldman perimetry. So it is a Goldman perimetry is the visual field examination. So previously they used to do only the Goldman perimetry. So which the machine is like that of the Humphrey perimetry, but nowadays you have turned to the automated perimetry, that is the Humphrey perimetry. So central vein occlusion studies classifications of the initial perforation status of the CRVO was important for determining the natural history of the disease. So we have already discussed the poor visual acuity and larger area of the non-perfusion. There is a more chance of the retinal as well as the disc neovascularization. So at 3 years, there is 45 chance of developing neovascular glaucoma, and overall 34 chance of initial perfused eye convert into non-perfused eye. So what is the pathophysiology, or how, what is the given reason for this ischemia is within the retinal arteries and the retinal vessels or retinal veins. They're within the retrolaminar portions of the optic nerve. So what happens? The central retinal arteries and vein are aligned parallel to each other in the common tendinous tissue sheath. So central retinal arteries and veins are naturally compressed as they cross the rigid sleeve like opening in the lamina cribrosa, but typically gives off branching collateral vessels just piercing the lamina. And these vessels may compress from the mechanical stretching of lamina or with increase in intraocular pressure, which may cause a post-bowing of the lamina and subsequently impingement of the veins on the veins. So it's nothing. The reason is due to the compressions at the level of the lamina cribrosa. Furthermore, local factors may predispose to occlusions of the veins, including the compressions by the atherosclerotic central retinal artery or primary occlusion of the central retinal vein from inflammations. So hemodynamic alterations produce the stagnant flow and subsequent thrombus formations in the central retinal veins, including diminished blood flow, increased blood viscosity, and altered the lumen wall, which is the Virchow striae. So these all factors can lead to the central retinal vein occlusion. So it's due to the compressions, but compressions can simply be within the optic nerve head itself by the posterior bowing of the lamina, or it can be due to the alterations in the hemodynamic status. So in experimental trial, occlusion of both the retrolaminar central retinal artery and vein posterior to the lamina and prior to the branchings of the collateral channels from the main trunk was required to produce the ischemic CRVO. So it is hypothesized that non-ischemic CRVO may be due to occlusions of the central retinal vein at the site further posterior, allowing the normal collateral channels to provide the alternative routes of the venous drainage. And neovascularizations of the anterior and posterior segment and severity of macular edema are modulated by growth factors released from the ischemic retina. So it's very simple. Central retinal vein occlusion is very simple. So this is a pathogenesis which is due to the compressions of the central retinal vein and artery at the level of the optic nerve weight due to the typical piercings by the lamina cribrosa due to the stretching of the lamina or due to posterior bowing of the lamina, or it can be due to the change in the hemodynamic status or so it's of two type, non-ischemic type and ischemic type. So non-ischemic type, it has good visual acuity, so the outcome is good, and ischemic type has the poor visual acuity. So how you will treat the disease? Treatment of the CRVO is directed as treating the sequelae of the CRVO, particularly macular edema and neovascularization. So the treatment of systemic medical conditions, if any. So there is two modalities of the treatment, or the two things we have to consider in the treatment. One is we treat the sequelae of the disease like macular edema and neovascularization, so that if it is a non-ischemic type, we can stop it to convert to the ischemic type, or if it is a ischemic type, then we can convert to, we can stop the progressions of the disease so that we can at least preserve some amount of the visual acuity. So we do the grid laser photocoagulations in case of the CRVO, but in case the central retinal occlusion studies, it says that grid laser photocoagulation is not recommended. So corticosteroid therapy maintains the anti-inflammatory effect with modulations of productions of cytokinins and growth factors, including VES. So also thought to stabilize the branch retinal block with reductions of vascular permeability. So shows a significant improvement in visual acuity with intravitreal triamcinolone compared to observations. So the limited durations of the response of the intravitreal triamcinolone therapy has prompted the development of sustained release steroid, that is intravitreal fluocinolone acetonide. So, but with sustained release, all the phakic patients develop visual significant cataract and 92% develop the increase in intraocular pressure. So, we give the steroid therapy, intravitreal steroid therapy in this type of patient. So, there is a significant improvement by decreasing the inflammations, but the further one, but there is a chance of the cataract development as well as the secondary glaucoma formation. So we give triamcinolone acetate rather than the other drugs which was thought to be given, fluocinolone acetinoid. It has a good outcome than the triamcinolone, which is a sustained release, but the more chance of complications like a cataract and the glaucoma is more in this fluocinolone. Intravitreal anti-VES therapy, that is VES causes a capillary endothelial cell proliferations, progressive vascular closure and non-closure in the CRVO. So anti-VES enhances the blood flow, it lowers the intravenous pressures and normalizes the venous diameter and toxicity. Go for the laser photocoagulation. So in case of the central vein occlusion studies recommended pan-retinal photocoagulations is delivered promptly after development of the neovascularization, but not prophylactically in eyes with non-perfused CRVO. So once you see the neovascularizations at the iris, or you have seen at the discs, or you have seen at the elsewhere, then you go for the pan-retinal photocoagulation. In 90% of the cases, the neovascularization resolve in 1 to 2 months after the PRP, pan-retinal photocoagulation. And persistent neovascularizations after PRP is the patient should be closely observed, and additional PRP may be applied to halt its progression. Patient with neovascularization at the discs or elsewhere without neovascularizations at the iris should be treated with PRP to prevent the anterior segment neovascularization. So whenever you will see the neovascularization anywhere in any part, then you go for the PRP. So laser therapy is you go for the pan-retinal photocoagulation. Then medical therapy. So you go for the topical or systemic anti-glaucoma agent to reduce the intraocular pressure, topical steroid to reduce the inflammation, and cycloplegic to prevent from the posterior segment ischemia. So there is a chance of cataract formation. Why there is a cataract formation? Because cataract is a lens is a avascular structure. It does not have its own blood supply or its own nutrition. So it's provided by the aqueous. So whenever there is alterations in the aqueous flow leading to the increased intraocular pressure, that causes alteration in metabolism of the lens leading to the cataract formation. So whenever there is a posterior synechia is also there, the metabolism of the lens is altered leading to the early cataract formation. So posterior synechia, if it is there, there will be the increase in intraocular pressure. So always the cycloplegic is given. It will relieve the pain also, and it will prevent the synechia, posterior synechia formation. Alternative treatments are chorioretinal vascular anastomosis. So in the eyes with perfused CRVO, investigators have bypassed the occluded central retinal vein by creating the chorioretinal anastomosis between the nasal branch retinal vein and choroidal circulation. Tissue plasminogen activator, that is a thrombolytic agent, is suspected thrombus in the central retinal vein. So tissue plasminogen activator converts the plasminogen to plasmin, which destabilize the intravascular thrombi and can be administered systemic, intravitreal, and by the endovascular cannulations of the retinal veins. Now the surgical treatment. So we go for the vitrectomy. Pars plana vitrectomy can be useful to address the complications of the CRVO and even to attempt to alter the natural course of the disease. Indicated in non-clearing vitreous hemorrhage. So if there is a vitreous hemorrhage and it's long-standing, then we go for vitrectomy. Removal of the epiretinal membrane and fibrovascular proliferation is present, and placement of the complete endolaser PRP at the time of PRP. So after you do the vitrectomy, at the time you go for the endolaser pan-retinal photocoagulation also. In the eyes with extensive anterior segment neovascularizations and neovascular glaucoma, pars plana vitrectomy and endolaser may be combined with the pars plana placement of the glaucoma drainage shunt to avoid the anterior chamber hemorrhage at the time of tube placement. So we go for the other anti-glaucoma treatment with the glaucoma drainage device also. Potential role of the pars plana vitrectomy with peeling of internal limiting membrane may have been investigated for treatment of the cystoid macular edema secondary to the CRVO. And radial optic neurotomy, that is combined with the pars plana vitrectomy with the radial optic neurotomy involving the transvitreal incisions of the nasal scleral ring to release the pressure on the central retinal vein at the level of the scleral outlet. So this is a difference. These are the differences of the non-ischemic CRVO and ischemic type of the CRVO. So the visual acuity and relative apparent pupillary defect, visual field defect, fundus apparence, fundus fluorescent angiography, and ERG at the prognosis. So which I have explained to you in the clinical features. So this is a table which you can read it easily, and you can write in exam also or in the Viva also. So what is the general guideline for the CRVO is treat any associated intraocular neovascularizations with PRP. So I have told you whatever is the neovascularization, you have to go for the laser. Treat associated macular edema if visually significant with the intravitreal anti-VAS or the steroid. So if there is a macular edema, then you have to treat it with you have to advise the patient to give the intravitreal injections. Either it can be the Avastin or it can be the steroid triamcinolone acetate. Visual acuity loss from the macular edema does not improve with grid laser. So this also can have to be explained to the patient. And lower IOP if elevated, and it is to treat the secondary glaucoma and treat the other underlying medical conditions. So what are the risk factors that should be isolated, and that should be treated. So I think if it will go through it, it will be very easy for you. Between the differences between the non-ischemic and ischemic type of the CRVO. So the visual acuity is, in case of the non-ischemic, it is a good visual acuity. It's more than 2200 and it is less than 2200 in ischemic type. Relative apparent pupillary defect is mild or absent. It is present. Visual field defect will not be present in non-ischemic type, but it's common in ischemic type. So it's usually in the 30-degree field. Fundus apparence is less. All the features will be there, but it will be the less hemorrhage, less edema. There will be less macular edema, so less toxicity and dilatations of the vessel. And fundus fluorescent angiography, there will be the less area of non-perfusion. So we have already discussed it is less than 10 dix diopter and it is more than 10 dix diopter retinal capillary non-perfusion. ERG, that is electroretinogram, is normal, that is reduced B wave amplitudes, and prognosis is good, less chance of anterior segment neovascularizations or neovascular glaucoma formation. Whereas in ischemic CRVO, its prognosis is poor and high chance of anterior segment neovascularization and neovascular glaucoma formation. So the visual prognosis may be worse than the central retinal artery occlusion in case of central retinal vein occlusion, and a very long follow-up is required in this type of the patient. So tomorrow I will discuss with you about the ROP. Then Tuesday I will discuss with you about the retinoblastoma. Then I think we will end retina, and after Diwali we will discuss the orbit and optic, optic, and what else is there, optic nerve. Okay, any question? So wish you good luck and go through the chapter, and tomorrow we will come with the new chapter.